In a recent poll, the Boston Bruins were voted as the most hated team in NHL. But why would a team as successful as the Bruins end up on top of such a shameful list? Is it the players, the fan base, or even the management? Here's a list of why we think everyone hates the Bruins. Ray Bourque finished his career with a different team. We're still reeling over this one. Trading Ray Bourque was an insult to everyone who contributed time and effort to the Bruins throughout his career. Giving Bourque an opportunity to win a Stanley Cup was not a terrible thing, but would have been preferable if they'd done so when he was still a member of the Bruins. They spent the majority of his tenure towards the bottom of the NHL in payroll, despite the fact that the team was making insane amounts of money and the owner was a billionaire. Many years they were a player or two away from winning, but they refused to spend the money to get the extra scorer to complement Cam Neely or the defenseman to relieve pressure on Bourque. There was no excuse for not delivering a title to Bourque while he was still in Boston. It's awful that this once proud hockey town celebrated the Colorado Avalanche's Stanley Cup victory with a parade. They don't spend money, but they expect their fans to. Jeremy Jacobs stated during the NHL Lockout a few years ago, "Ticket prices are absurdly expensive. Our charges are exorbitant. We've been chasing away fans with it for the previous few years. For every dollar we've raised ticket prices, we've spent more than twice as much on a player." I hope that the commissioner in the next CBA can strike an agreement that allows us to stabilize and possibly cut ticket costs, because I believe we're chasing away a large portion of our ticket base. Unlike the Bruins, our fans are a priority. Your support matters to us, so please subscribe to our channel. They capitalized on the lockout. So because Jacobs is worried about his high ticket prices and how they're scaring away fans, he must have reduced the Bruins' ticket costs to the lowest half of the league, right? Especially because he owns the stadium, a portion of the cable network they're on, and the food distributors that sell all of the concessions at the Garden, right? Wrong. They had the second highest ticket pricing in the NHL in 2006-2007. There are too many head coaches. You should watch the Boston Bruins if you think Al Davis passes through head coaches. They've had 7 different head coaches from 2001 to 2008. On average, 1 head coach is hired each year. The Bruins have been coached by Pat Burns, Mike Keenan, Robbie Ftorek, Mike O'Connell, Mike Sullivan, Dave Lewis, and Claude Julien. That is both beautiful and heartbreaking. You'd think that after the first 4 or 5 head coaches and 3 general managers, they'd have figured out the true issue. The Bruins never made Ulf Samuelson pay for destroying Cam Neely. How could Ulf Samuelson still be on the ice in the NHL years after his cheap shot on Cam Neely? They would have destroyed him back in the days of the Big Bad Bruins. He should have been tortured every time he encountered the Bruins. He should have bloodied the ice. It never seems to happen for reasons I'll never understand. He was given a free pass for wrecking the career of the Bruins' strongest offensive force ever. People forget how good Cam really was. Remember when Cam Neely eventually met Ulf a few years later in a game? Neely was involved in a scrum and attempted to attack Ulf, only to be ejected from the game. Someone on that team owed him Ulf Samuelson's demise. They lost 14 straight games to the Canadiens. 14 straight defeats and not a single win? That's pure nonsense. Really, it's pathetic. I'm embarrassed. When I turned on the Bruins game the other day, I mistook them for being in Montreal. It was an easy error to make for someone who hadn't followed the series. The rink was plastered with Canadian advertisements. The Canadiens were winning, the audience was ecstatic, and they chanted, "Let's go Habs," over and over. Whenever the Bruins play the Canadiens, there is always a Montreal contingent at the Garden. It usually ends in one of 2 ways. Either A, they yell a little, get drowned out by boos, and the Bruins win and everyone goes home happy. Or B, they chant a little, get drowned out by boos, and the Canadian fans are beaten up by intoxicated and angry Bruins fans. The Bruins played a key role in organizing the lockout. I don't have a problem with the lockout in and of itself. The lockout was necessary for the NHL that was about to go bankrupt. However, the Bruins' role was dubious at best. If the team was serious about winning, the prior structure was ideal. They possessed a millionaire owner, a devoted fan following, and a steady source of revenue from the Garden and NESN. They ought to have been able to outspend everyone. They didn't, however. They were more interested in making money than in winning. Then, after organizing the lockout and assisting in the settlement negotiations, they were caught with their trousers down. They were completely unprepared for the new NHL rules and ended up assembling a pitiful roster with no chance of winning. What happened to the Bruins in 2003-2004? I'd given up hope on the Boston Bruins, but then something occurred. They got interesting again in 2003-2004. They won their division, but ran against a hot goalie in the playoffs, Jose Theodore, and were eliminated in the first round by the Canadiens. That team, on the other hand, was good, exciting, entertaining to see, and easy to root for. They had me at hello. I was a fan once more. I committed to the group. So what exactly did they do? Brian Rolston, Sergei Samsonov, Joe Thornton, Hal Gill, Mike Knuble, Nicholas Boynton, Martin Lapointe, Sergei Gonchar, and Michael Nylander were either released, did not resign, or were moved. They were completely decimated, the best team they'd had in years. They made reasons such as they'd be better prepared after all NHL contracts are invalidated due to the lockout, and Joe Thornton isn't tough enough. This was one of the most heinous times of my Bruins devotion. They'd finally begun to win me back. I enjoyed watching them play once again. They yanked the rug right out from under me once more like they usually do. I'm not going to fall into that trap this time. No one ends their career in Boston. Cam Neely retired as a Bruin, but if he had been fit, he would have been traded so he could win a cup somewhere else. Ray Bourque was sent packing. Bobby Orr was sent packing. Phil Esposito was sent packing. All of these players should have finished their careers on a high note in Boston. They had become legends. The Bruins once had an advertisement that read, "Loyalty, it's called Bruins." For decades, they've been the least faithful club in the NHL. They don't care about their fans. They're not committed to their players. Their only allegiance is to the big dollar, which gets me to the main reason I can't root for this Bruins team. Jeremy Jacobs. Jeremy Jacobs. His name elicits virtually universal anger among Bruins supporters. He's unconcerned about winning. He refuses to spend his billions on improving the team. He charges exorbitant prices for seats to his own venue. He earns money from NESN, the Celtics' rent, and all food and beverages served at the Garden. He doesn't reside in Boston. His own players despise him. In the 1980s and 1990s, he paid his general managers based on profitability rather than on-ice results. I despise Jeremy Jacobs with all of my heart. I will not support another Boston Bruins club until he's no longer the owner of the team. I will not have the rug yanked out from beneath me again. I'm not going to be lured into another fortuitous Bruins season in which they win a couple of playoff games. I feel bad for the players, particularly this season, because they appear to be a nice set of individuals. But if I'm duped again, shame on me. I've been duped for years and I'm no longer interested in playing the game. Indeed, let's go Habs. Now, let's move on from the Bruins and talk about the NHL player who almost murdered his agent. Click the video on the screen.